All right. Well, hello, dear viewer. So I just saw the Baz Luhrmann version of Elvis, and of course, Baz Luhrmann, of course, makes these sort of surreal, very flashy sorts of movies that are very what's the word that you could say? I mean, I could say surreal, somewhat visceral. Obviously, there's like gunshots to point things out, this and that. Mostly, this was Tom Hanks with the fat suit on, portraying Colonel Tom Parker, a Dutchman who, and of course, like I say, they're having or the eternal Dutchman, just like the eternal, you know, Anglo or whatever the thing. But gotta watch out for the Dutch too. Dutch are pretty, they don't have the best history. They were also one of the groups that helped start accounting the way it is today, but that's a whole other story. Basically, we see that Colonel Tom Parker was a huckster, much the same way as like a P.T. Barnum. He literally was in circuses and whatnot. He made his way into the country western scene, la di da di da, as the film goes on. And it's more about him taking advantage of it and being a degenerate gambler. But more to the point is the way that, Elvis is portrayed. He's made to look like a dupe. He's made to look like a dupe in the movie. And it's just like, it's a 3-hour movie. I don't know how I stood it, And of course, it goes to show how he tries to, he's one of the more respected whites. He's, basically, I'll just put it this way. I'm going to sound very much like an SJW, but I'm going to say it like this regardless. He's slumming it, basically. He's one of these honkies that's, you know, as Eminem said, which I'll tell you here in a moment. But of course, like Eminem said, just like Elvis, I do black music, so selfishly and use it to get myself wealthy, you know, just like Elvis Presley. But it's the truth. And then Eminem does the song at the end. It goes to show just how sold out it is. But there's so many threads, and I'm just going to talk about a couple that you could discuss. But how is Elvis seen by people older than who are millennials or even Gen Xers? I think generally speaking, depending on who you talk to, we remember Public Enemy. Elvis was a hero to most. Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant me. Yeah, he never meant shit to me because the sucker was simple and plain, and was racist and simple and plain. You know, motherfuck him and John Wayne. Rednecks for 400 years, etc., etc. But that's what he's seen as. He's just some goofy dude who ended up stealing gospel music to make himself wealthy. Yeah. And of course, at the end, they're just like, "Oh, he was the best selling solo artist." Or who gives a fuck? The thing is that Elvis Presley, you can go ahead and say, "Oh, the hips and all that other stuff," or he supposedly had Elvis the pelvis, versus he had a brother called Enos the penis, right? But that's a whole other thing. Anyway, my point is this: I'm getting kind of schizo, but Elvis to me represents kind of the old school lib sort of mentality, at least in my opinion. He represents the old school lib mentality of just like, well, I surely respect the African American crowd and whatnot. He's kind of like he was before Bill Clinton was famous. He's kind of like the version of Bill Clinton, right? At least in my opinion. Now, like I say, people can feel free to disagree and say this is absolute bullshit. This is a trash video. Go ahead and do that. But this is my take on it. Elvis represented, just ridiculous moments in the movie, like, after the death of MLK, of course, nothing about Malcolm X, nobody cares about that. But anyway, when MLK is assassinated in Memphis, of course, just like, we got to we've got to heal the country, one of these producers or whatever, and they're doing the Christmas special. We got to heal the country and all this with a song. And it's just like, you realize that today, There's no artist, in my opinion, there's no musical artist today that has that sort of power. None. Zero. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's like, yeah, people can go ahead and talk about the influence of, I don't know, Jay-Z, or talk about, I mean, even from separating it from the rap world, what, like Kenny Chesney or something like that? You think that he's going to unite the country? There's no musical artist that just, had the impact that someone like Elvis did. And of course, the thing is, nowadays, I'm sure that people lambast Elvis for just stealing gospel music and somewhat making it his own. And of course, the pills and the peanut butter and banana sandwiches and all those jokes about him dying on the toilet. I mean, who gives a fuck at the end of the day? But he represents that sort of old school lib mentality of just like, well, if we help the African Americans out, then they can have a better option. Thank you very much, and all that business, right? He was that sort of dude. I mean, I would imagine that he would, if he was still alive, he'd be one of these guys like, well, I support Black Lives Matter. I'm tired of them getting killed by the police and whatnot. And that's the sort of mentality that exists. Of course, he would still live in Graceland. He would be sure to keep all black folks, he would probably buy out the community and say, well, I don't want black folks in the community. It's not that I'm racist, But that's the legacy of somebody like Elvis. Not going to deny his talent, and you're not going to deny any of that. No. What I will say is that what is it built on? He he ended up getting screwed over. He had somewhat traditional values in the sense that he didn't want to sleep with his wife after she gave birth to their daughter, but it's just like he was somewhat trad in some ways, but it's like, bruh, she was 14 years old when he met her. It's just like, but that happened a lot. Look up Jerry Lee Lewis and talk to me about it. But the thing is, man, with somebody like Elvis, you say to yourself, who gives a fuck? Because I think that a lot of millennials today, it's like, yeah, they may have respect for, I don't know, Eminem or the legacy of whomever, but at this point, we don't give a fuck. And it goes to show just how, supposedly rebellious people really aren't rebels. It's like we've seen, of course, we've seen, what's his name? Tom Morales? What's his name? The guy from Rage Against the Machine. What the hell is his name? Tom something or other. Tom. It's gonna bug the hell out of me just trying to think of his name. I'm looking it up because I'm a boomer. Donating ticket sales to reproductive rights. Oh man. Tom Morello. There we go. Tom Morello. Had to look it up. And it's like these folks are just like, we're gonna fight for your reproductive rights and whatnot, and opposing the military complex. It's like, bruh, now you're an old man though, and all you can do is just run your fucking mouth, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like man, maybe, yeah, vegetarian. I think vegetarian. Okay, I'm reading the Wikipedia, but oh my goodness, sorry, I'm getting off the topic. The point is this: is that the system, quote unquote, allows people to be somewhat rebellious, and you can go ahead and talk about my hips and whatnot, and my racism, that the color barrier that Elvis broke down, but it's like he didn't really. And that's the whole other thing as well, is that he was part of that civil rights era and whatnot. Of course, except for the fact that he went and talked to Nixon later on, of course, in that famous photo and all that, being drugged out of his mind. He represented all that. And boomers can still love him and say, oh, I love his music. Oh, I love all of that. But realistically, for people older, we don't give a fuck. You're just like, oh, it's Elvis. Okay. Big deal, right? Just making sure that no one's going to walk in on me. I mean, at the end of the day, That's how I feel about it. It's just like, who gives a flip about Elvis? Who cares? He was some guy who wore some, studded fancy shirts, some, diamond studded fancy shirts and fancy glasses, and, supposedly died in the toilet or whatever. But, and when he was younger, he swayed his hips and, did all that. And it's just like, and ripped off black music, allegedly being friends with like BB King and shit like that. But it's like, you know, but Colonel Parker held him back. Yeah. He sounds like a typical liberal. I mean, he would probably be one of those guys who would be saying the N word, when reproductive rights get taken away. That's the sort of guy he sounds like. But that's my view of him. You can feel to agree or disagree. Once again, just to make sure for any of the haters that watch this video, I don't deny his talent, this and that, but it's like, at the end of the day, did he really innovate? Or did he just continue to kind of, did he reach his zenith and didn't really achieve anything beyond that? Anyway, that's all I got. See you later. Goodbye.